Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Northern Soul Reaper and today I'm going to be talking about chapter 2 of Time Paradox Ghostwriter. I really enjoyed chapter 1 when it made its debut in Weekly Shonen Jump. It sets up the world nicely and the story is fun, the characters are really great and the artwork is superb. It's not without its flaws, as I pointed out in my video previously, but I felt it was really good and enough. I liked it enough to continue reading. So when I read chapter 2, I decided that I wanted to give my thoughts on that as well. Before we get started, I am going to be talking about what happens in the chapter, so this is just a spoiler one. If you want to go in, read the chapter and then come back, that's the best way to ensure that you don't run into any unwanted spoilers. So let's get right into the review. So just to quickly recap the story of chapter 2, this chapter deals with the point of no return. As the manga describes it, this is the point where the protagonist has to make the fateful choice whether to return to normal life or continue down the path that they're walking. For Sasuke, the point of no return comes in the form of discovering that his microwave is continuing to spit out copies of Weekly Shonen Jump from 10 years in the future. When he reads one and discovers that it's still there and he wasn't hallucinating, he comes to the obvious conclusion that we did last week, that he has plagiarised this work, and he feels tremendous guilt from it. He feels terribly guilty about taking this story and taking away the fame and the opportunity from Itsuki Aino. But what he also says is, well, this is still being written and published by Itsuki Aino, so the Shonen Jump must have come from a divergent timeline. He reasons that when his microwave first sent the copy through and he decided to use it, he created a split timeline, one in which Itsuki Aino is still the author of White Knight, and one where he is the author, and the Weekly Shonen Jumps are continuing to hop over the timelines. Obviously this is just a kind of a way to try and alleviate his guilt, but he still feels so guilty that he decides that he cannot continue White Knight. He wants to try and get something of his own work serialised. He's already been given the foot in the door by White Knight, so he wants to take the opportunity to try and get something else of his own work put into Weekly Shonen Jump. He has a meeting with his editor coming up, so he goes there and he tells his new editor, that he does not want to continue with White Knight as a weekly serialization. He said, I conceived it as a one-shot, as a short story. I have no desire to turn it into a series. Now, obviously, the entire editorial staff loved the story so much, including his editor, so there's a lot of pushback from that. He says, you need to tell this story, the characters are alive, everyone wants to know how it ends. He even goes so far as to show Sasuke some fan mail. And at the end of the meeting, the editor says, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but just know that we will be waiting for the end of this story for the rest of our lives. It was that good. So Sasuke goes home conflicted, still not sure what to do, and he reads the next few chapters of White Knight that have come through his microwave. And he collapses to the floor weeping. It's just so good. It continues to be amazing and move him in ways he didn't think was possible. At that point he realises that he has robbed the world of White Knight. Itsuki Aino can't really now go and get their story published and serialized because he has already come up with the one shot and stolen those characters. So he says, I need to draw this series. He turns the first three chapters, the next three chapters, from Weekly Shonen Jump from 10 years in the future into storyboards, and he shows them to his editor, who loves them. His series is chosen at the next meeting to be serialized by unanimous vote, and he leaves the offices of Shonen Jump as a serialized artist. His work is going to be serialized. He's reached that milestone that he's been trying to achieve for the past 4 years on the work of someone else, but his reasoning is he has taken this away from the world. He is going to draw this series with the burden of guilt until its completion. He will bring them Itsuki Aino's story where they can no longer. And just at the end of the chapter, as he's contemplating where Itsuki Aino is, and he says, they'll probably be able to come up with a story even better than White Knight. They're that talented. Obviously flimsy logic, but he's saying what he has to kind of try and alleviate his guilt. But then someone says to him as he's leaving the offices, excuse me, are you Tepe Sasuke? To which he says yes, and they say, hello, I'm Itsuki Aino, and it's the 17-year-old student from the end of the last chapter. And with Sasuke in complete shock, that's where the chapter ends, with the meeting of these two people, the original artist and the plagiarizer. So once again, this story ending its chapter on a cliffhanger, and what a cliffhanger it was. We get the original creator of White Knight and the person who stole it and got it published 10 years before it was supposed to be meeting up for the first time. I really can't wait to see where this particular plot thread goes in the future chapters. Overall, I enjoyed this instalment of Time Paradox Ghostwriter. I feel like it continued the momentum of the last chapter really well. The story is interesting, and I really enjoyed how the first half focuses on the time paradox element and with Sasuke trying to reason out what happened with the divergent timelines. It's a really interesting concept that the Weekly Shonen Jump travelling through time to his timeline and him copying it created a divergent timeline. So we still have another time period going forward where Itsuki Aino is still the author. It's kind of like a way for Sasuke to get around his guilt. I did like that Sasuke felt guilt. Speaking of that, I like that he, didn't just hands down say I'm going to copy this. I like that he kind of took that on board, and he did feel the heavy weight of what he'd done. He's plagiarized this work, and I feel like we did get to see him feel that. And even for a moment, it looked like he was going to abandon the work and try and get his own work serialized. Obviously, this is probably going to be a long running shonen manga, so it's not quite as easy as just the main character kind of saying I'm going to give up and then he gets published for something else. We have to have that conflict in that story to move things forward. But I enjoyed that we saw the choice in front of him, that point of no return, and his reasoning. I guess but on one side you can kind of understand where he's coming from. He's reasoned out that he is in a split off timeline where Itsuki Aino will not be able to publish it, and he's telling the story. He feels like he's given the world that story. It's probably, flimsy logic, a bit of a straw man argument, but it's something that he's using to justify his actions. And who among us can say that we would totally be not tempted to do what he's doing? I can't for 100% certainly say that I wouldn't be tempted. We've all talked about going back in time and putting the lottery numbers on, or investing in Apple, or creating Apple, or anything, something like that. We've all talked about that. I can kind of understand where he's coming from. I don't know if I would have the willpower to kind of turn away from that opportunity. I would like to think that I would now sitting here, but who knows. The artwork continues to be fantastic in this series. The main protagonist is drawn very well, and I like the scenes and the backgrounds that are drawn. They're really great. Again, there is a lot of text in this chapter. It's still the one thing that puts me off a little bit. There's a lot of text pasted over the lovely drawings and artwork, but overall the illustrations are really nice, and a lot of the time the text doesn't distract, and I'm not that put off by big wordy manga, so it's not that big of a deal. It's just when the text is over a lot of the images and kind of obscures some of the lovely artwork. There are also some points where there's like black text with a white outline around it over the top of a dark background, so it made some of the text a little difficult to read. Not impossible, but just I found myself having to reread a couple of sections. Overall, I enjoyed it though. I enjoy that this series continues to give us the sci-fi element with the more mundane elements, how manga's created. And I like that the central mystery is set up of why is this manga coming through time and materializing in Sasuke's microwave. It's something that I feel like the protagonists will be exploring and trying to get to the bottom of as well. I don't think Itsuki Aino is just going to take it lying down that Sasuke is stealing her artwork, but it's going to be fun to explore it in the next chapter. So that's pretty much it for my thoughts on this chapter. I enjoyed this instalment quite a bit. I liked the cliffhanger, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes in the next chapter with Sasuke and Itsuki Aino finally meeting up. And I'm also looking forward to following that underlying plot thread of who is sending this Weekly Shonen Jump back in time and across timelines. I feel like that's going to be the plot thread that runs through the series throughout. I really like the blending of sci-fi and more mundane aspects, and I'm looking forward to seeing where the chapter goes with that and how it progresses that story going forward, because I'd like to get more information and a better look into how manga is created, but also I know that it can't just drop the sci-fi elements, and I feel like the time travel and time paradox is going to be something that the series continues on with a little bit more than the manga creation side, but it just remains to be seen. I'm really enjoying this series so far, and I may even do some more chapter reviews on this as it comes out, but so far I'm enjoying it. I'm going to continue reading, and I want to see where the story goes. So that's pretty much it for the review. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. It really helps out the channel. And thank you to everyone who's subscribed so far. I've crossed the 200 subscriber milestone and I'm heading towards 250. It would be absolutely amazing to hit 250. If you haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing so. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this chapter, if you're liking the series overall and where you think the story will go. Let me know in the comments, or you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram where I post about what I'm reading or just pictures of my cats. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Northern Soul Reaper, and until next time, goodbye.